Do I need to show you a bunch of videos of cops attacking protesters, peaceful protesters?
They stop, and people will run. It's already happening.
Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new, welcome to Dime More. I am so sorry, guys. It took me so long to put out my second video. A few of you actually messaged me and like, hey, where's that video? So I do apologize, but here it is. So this is not the video that I originally had planned to release. I was actually in the middle of editing my video that I planned to release for my second video, and I really just knew that this video topic was priority over any material that I had. So prior to quarantine, everything was really good. I was very well aware of my mental health. As I've gotten older, I've become more aware of my mental health state as well as my triggers. I do believe that it is very important that people are aware of their state as well as what their triggers are and how to deal with them. And for me personally, being an empath, it's easy for me to absorb another person's emotions and as though they're my own. So I'm very particular of who I surround myself with and always take like emotional breaks to recharge, which that's why I do love my time alone. But I also like to get out and socialize here and there. So when quarantine became mandatory, I kind of freaked out a little bit. I wasn't really sure how I was gonna take it, you know, not being able to go about your daily activities or hang out with friends or go the places that you usually go to. But one thing I was extremely mindful of was to make sure that I wasn't going to get depressed and make sure that didn't try to creep in, because it tends to do that. So I just made sure over the quarantine that I stayed in contact with all of my family, a few of my friends, and even got outside to get some fresh air, for some exercise, and whether it was to take a walk or to go bike riding. I mean, honestly, vitamin D, can't go wrong with that. So for me personally, quarantine was a positive experience for me. It really helped me to refocus, because prior to, I wasn't focused on the things that I should have been focused on. And so it just really helped me put things into perspective and to work on, or to be more productive and just work on things that for my future and just things to better myself. So when everything surfaced about George Floyd and his murder, I was very overwhelmed emotionally. You know, not long before that, there was the Ahmaud Arbery case, which was disturbing as well, and I actually inadvertently came across his video as I was scrolling through social media, and I honestly, it was really heartbreaking. And I honestly did not watch the George Floyd video. I couldn't. Luckily, I did not come across that one on social media. I did see the photo, which was disturbing in and of itself, and I also saw a few people posted his last words, the things that he was yelling out, and it was so emotionally overwhelming. I spoke to my mother about it shortly after I found out, and she said something that really just, it hit home. And she said, you know, that looked like one of your uncles on the ground in that photo. And I looked back at the photo and I just, honestly, I broke down. So that's when it really hit home for me, was that easily could have been my father, one of my brothers, one of my cousins, an uncle. And thank God it wasn't. but that's just how real the situation was. So after that, I had to take a break from social media. The things that people were posting, some of the just ignorant comments and things like that, I had to take a break because I was honestly, initially I was overwhelmed with sadness, and then that sadness quickly turned into anger, and it wasn't a good place for me. I was not able to function as normal, and I just knew I needed to pull away until I can gather myself, my emotions, and my thoughts. So I took about a week or almost 2 actually from Facebook, and actually most social media, but that's where it was just plastered everywhere. I get on Facebook more so than any of my other platforms. So I only honestly got back on there because it was my dad's birthday, and I always write him paragraphs and post pictures and things of that nature. So I did that. But during that time that I was off of Facebook, I'm the type of person where when someone does something outlandish or says something, out the way, and it's just kind of a part of their character, I always like to figure out why. I always like to know why a person is the way that they are, like what has happened in their life to mold them that way. And I've just always been inquisitive like that because I like to just understand the why behind things. And I couldn't wrap my head around why people just have such disdain and just pure hatred towards another person because of the color of their skin. Me growing up, I was mostly around other races more so than my own, and I was homeschooled for a few years, and then prior to, I went to private school, then I was homeschooled, and then for high school I went to a college prep private school, which was predominantly white. But me personally, like, I've never experienced any racism to my face, that is. I don't know what people say behind my back, but all those years I've never experienced anything of that magnitude. And so it was hard for me to understand. And my parents are not the type to care who we date. When I say we, my siblings and myself, they are not the type to care about that. Only thing they care about is that person a good person? How do they treat others? Do they treat you right? That's it. Skin color is not a factor in that. We look at a person's morals and values and just what kind of person are they. That's the characteristics and the things that matter. But I am aware that racism is taught. It is a taught behavior. No one is born with that hate and those type of that type of character, if you want to put it that way. So I really sat and thought about this, and the only thing that I could think of that made sense to me was say there was someone who grew up in a religious household. Me, for instance, I grew up Christian, and all of my friends growing up shared those same morals, those same values, that same belief. And all the way up until or high school, throughout high school, I was always surrounded by the same group of people. And the only time that I experienced any people who kind of, I guess, thought differently or who were different outside of my religious beliefs was in college. And that was just like culture shock almost, in a sense, because up until that point I really have not been immersed into that type of culture. So that's the only thing that I could think of, although I am aware of the fact that even with someone who has grown up racist or learned that from their parents or their grandparents or whomever, I do believe that it doesn't mean that the child, like whoever grew up that way, has to remain that way. They can always educate themselves. But I was just using that as an example to try to really understand behind it, because like I said, it is a taught behavior. So, you know, just because I myself did not experience any racism doesn't mean that it's not happening. You know, a lot of people have this belief where, oh, well, you know, it's not happening to me. Your world is not the only world that exists. So I'm very well aware of the fact that racism is very much alive. And one thing I hate, and I've seen so many people post about it, or just honestly, I've seen so many people post ignorant comments, and it's like, oh, you know, I'm not racist, but what? Like, whatever you're about to say is about to negate what you just said. So just cut it off. That's almost like right before someone's rude, they're like, oh, I don't mean to be rude, but you're about to be rude, so just cut it off, period. And I do believe that it is more so an issue with the older generation as opposed to the younger generation, and maybe that's due to whenever they grew up, like the times they grew up, they just kind of stuck with those times and didn't get with the current. But that's why I do believe it is important for the younger generation to educate them. I was on social media and I saw a video on TikTok of this girl, this teenager named Haley, and she was having a discussion with her parents about the Black community. My initial reaction when seeing the video, I was extremely annoyed by the parents because they were saying some incredibly racist, uneducated things. But when Haley went in, she went in. Like, she gave her parents the business. Like, I was so impressed with how well educated she was on what she was speaking on. So
most of them just want to suck off the system or do something bad like drugs or gangs. And that's all
they have been oppressed. They have not been given the same opportunities you have had.
Yes, they do, and there's plenty of Black people.
No, they don't, Dad.
There's plenty of
and you not recognizing that as an issue is the reason why it's still continuing today.
I see them all over. There's all kinds of successful people that are of color. It doesn't matter what color, brown, white.
But it's
orange,
a lot harder
yellow.
for them to get to that position.
It doesn't matter. When they do, they're fine. But there's always filthy animals. And that
You're calling people of color black animals. You're calling them animals. Are you kidding me?
You didn't let me finish.
That's not okay. No matter what,
too.
that's not okay. No matter what, it's not okay. Racism is not okay. Why do you think that racism is okay? Mom, I was watching political stuff and you said to turn that off because you don't want to hear about it. That means that I am educated on it and you are not.
I'm sick of hearing it.
The fact that you can have that ignorance for the majority is bliss.
Okay, so
ignorance for the minority is destruction. Just give me the statistic.
In 2017, 457 white people were shot to death by the police in the United States.
Okay.
223 were Black.
76% of the population is white. 13% is Black.
I get that.
If they were being killed at the exact same rate by police officers, the rate of Black people being killed would be 8.9. But it's not. It's 24%. The rate of white people being killed should be about where it is. So they're being killed at a higher rate. There's more white people, meaning that the amount of people killed by cops who are white would be higher.
The reaction of the person. I'm not saying
Because they're tired.
not saying it's
they're tired
right.
of being treated that way.
I'm not saying it's right.
Good.
But if they started teaching them that this is the world that we live in, you don't want to be killed. Why do you think your friend's father taught him that?
So that his black son doesn't end up dead like Tamir Rice.
Because he doesn't want him to grow up with the chip on his shoulder that
He doesn't want his black son to end up dead.
Exactly.
That's not okay. Why do you think that's okay?
Because
why is it something that you're okay with? Why is that a reality that you're okay with?
I'm okay with it.
But you are.
No, I'm not. I'm
so
saying,
stand against it. So stand against it. If you're not okay with it, so stand against it.
With all of that being said, I knew that it was my duty to go out and to let my voice be heard in protest. You know, it's just not enough that we are not racist, but that we're anti-racism. Anti-racism includes beliefs, actions, movements, and policies adopted or developed to oppose racism. So we have to take a stand and not be afraid to speak out. You know, like those are the things that are going to make a difference. So with all of that being said, I felt it was my duty to have my voice be heard, to speak out on every social media platform that I could, and to go out and protest. So initially I was extremely nervous because of videos that I've seen here in my hometown that were peaceful protests but were no longer peaceful once the cops decided to trap the protesters for no reason and throw flashbangs and tear gas, which I showed at the beginning of the video. But I was not going to allow that to stop me. I just hope that going forward we can continue to stand together, continue to come together and just speak out, not be afraid to speak out on things that aren't right. You know, that's the only way that we're going to continue to see change. So I just pray that going forward we continue to progress, you know. So those are my thoughts, guys, about everything that is going on. Don't be afraid to speak out on your social media platforms. And for the ones who have went out and protested, for the ones that are speaking out, we thank you. Like it's just amazing to see so many people come together on this issue that has been an issue for far too long. So I thank you guys for taking the time to listen and hear me out and watch my video. I pray that everyone stays safe, and I'll see you in my next video.
He did what?
That changed the world.
That changed the world.